Well, the Green Bay Packers were the Green Bay Packers again in 2014. This is the team that has become the gold standard in the NFC North, one of the elite teams in the NFC, and frankly, all of the National Football League, and rightfully so. We talk about a team that has made the playoffs now 6 consecutive seasons, won 4 straight divisional titles, and went 12-4 this year, won the NFC North, beat the Cowboys in a classic game in the divisional round, and then lost to the Seahawks in another classic game in the championship round. This is a Green Bay organization that does a lot of things right. They've got the right head coach in place. Obviously, they've got the right quarterback place, and arguably, in my mind, the best guy in the business in Aaron Rodgers. But it goes beyond that. Why do the Packers enjoy so much success, and why are they so consistent? And why are they able to year in and year out play winning football and make it to the playoffs and be a team to be reckoned with? Well, again, having the right head coach in place is a good place to start. Having a great front office is a great place to start. Having Aaron Rodgers in place most certainly helps. But that's not all. One of the biggest keys to success for this Green Bay Packers organization comes via the front office and their emphasis on the NFL draft and building their roster, their team through the NFL draft. It's amazing to me the Green Bay Packers in that NFC Championship game against the Seattle Seahawks had 20 of their 22 starters were drafted by the team. 20 out of 22. Why is that important? Why is that key? Because that leads to chemistry. That leads to continuity on the football field and in the locker room. Players grow with each other. They get better with each other. They bond with each other. They understand their roles and accept their roles, and they have years to familiarize themselves with their roles. It also allows the team to stay young, which is important. It allows the team to have depth. That way, it's kind of that next man up philosophy. If somebody goes down, you've got somebody else in the bullpen on the bench ready to go. It also allows the team to stay in control of their salary cap situation. It means if the Green Bay Packers want to let somebody go, they can. But if they don't want to let somebody go, they don't have to. Because of their ability to draft so well and the fact that they are such a young team, it allows them to have stars at a cheaper price. It allows them to keep their talent in-house. It allows them to control and dictate their own path and their own direction and not allow other circumstances and situations to do so. That's a big critical key for why this Packers organization is so good so consistently. It's not just because of Mike McCarthy. It's most certainly not just because of Aaron Rodgers, even though that helps a lot. It's because of the fact that they draft so well. They place so much emphasis on the NFL draft. So much of their team has been built through the NFL draft. I believe they have more players drafted by their team on their roster than anybody else in the National Football League. Like I said, it helps the team stay young. It helps provide depth in key places. It allows the team to stay on the right side of the salary cap. Having cheaper talent, younger for longer, it helps in so many areas and so many capacities. It frankly wouldn't be that surprising to me in the next season or two to see the Green Bay Packers win a Super Bowl championship again because of that very fact. And part of a major reason why they were successful again in 2014 and why they will be successful going forward is because of the elite offense they have with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. This is a team that led the league in points scored, finished sixth in total yards with more balance than they probably had at any point in time in quite some time with Eddie Lacy on the ground. Finished third in the league in third down percentage. So this is a team that gets into a lot of third and manageable situations, and even when they don't, they convert them at a higher clip than almost anybody in the National Football League. It's a really hard offense to get off of the field, meaning this is an offense that, as a result, scores a lot of points that is really hard to slow down and completely stop. And then defensively, it helps compensate for the fact that, frankly, this is a unit that's only slightly better than middle of the road. They'll have their games where they play really well. They'll have those games where they play really poorly. I think they were onto something when they moved Clay Matthews inside at linebacker because that was a huge weakness area for them. And as a result, allowed them to put other players in right places on the outside. And the defense was better off for it. But this is still only a slightly better than middle of the road defensive unit. A unit that does need to be upgraded in this offseason if this team is to take that next step. Now, this past offseason, this team did a really good job, both in free agency and via the draft. This is not a team that often spends a lot in free agency or goes out there and makes a big splashy move. when they do, it tends to pay off. It once did with Charles Woodson, and it most certainly did again in 2014 with Julius Peppers. I questioned the fit, and I questioned how much he had left in the tank heading into this season, but he definitely played big for the Packers at key times. And frankly, to me, in his role in 2014 was better than the Packers than he ever was with his 4 seasons in Chicago as a Bear. I truly believe that. Then bringing in LaTroy Guion from the Minnesota Vikings, he was a nice fit inside for them at the 3-4 nose tackle position. Guys that they brought in to supplement their roster, not necessarily be building their entire team around. And part of the reason, again, is because of their success in the NFL draft. And you look at that 2014 draft class the Packers have, and it looks pretty good at this point in time. Clinton Dix had his moments in 2014, most especially in the NFC Championship game, but he still had his inconsistencies. He still had his rookie struggles, and he'll need to grow and get better in year number 2. Devontae Adams flashed, definitely, especially against the Cowboys in that NFC divisional game, and you see a guy that, along with the Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb, could be really, the premier wide receiving core in the National Football League for years to come. Richard Rodgers in the 3rd round at times flashed a little something at tight end. They really got a steal in the 5th round. The center out of Ohio State, Corey Linsley, he was a guy that had to step in due to injury, and as the year went along, he got better and better. This is a Packers team that has been able to find some gems in recent years, even with some other busts that they've mixed in. And they most certainly did that again here in 2014, namely in the form of Corey Linsley, their 5th round pick, their starting center for the entire season. This is a Packers team, as well as they've done in the draft, still has needs. And this is a team that faces some challenges here heading into this offseason. They have some big-time free agents that they have to address and they have to make decisions on, most especially Randall Cobb and then Brian Bulaga. Those are 2 key cogs on their offense. Randall Cobb is an explosive weapon that brings so much to the table for Aaron Rodgers in that Green Bay passing attack that he has to be re-signed. And they have to find a way maybe to avoid paying him with the franchise tag. Then you look at Brian Bulaga. You could see the difference in that offensive line when Bulaga was in at right tackle versus when he's not. And when he is, this is an entirely different Green Bay Packers offensive line, one that for so many years has taken a lot of heat, legitimately so. But this year was a lot better than many portrayed them out to be. They really, really were. And if they're able to keep Bulaga and get him re-signed and have him over on that right side, it really helps fortify that offensive line for years to come and really helps improve the continuity up front in front of Aaron Rodgers. They also have decisions to make on Trayvon Williams. He's a 31-year-old corner, one-time an undrafted player who's been a gem and a find for them and played well for them for years. How much money are you going to commit to a guy that's already on the wrong side of 30? And then you look at a guy like B.J. Raji, who they were bringing back in 2014 on a 1-year kind of prove-it deal because of his disappointing 2013 season, and then he goes out early and misses the year due to an injury. Are you going to make a decision to bring him back and maybe bring him back even on the cheaper and hope in 2015 he gives you that one kind of monster prove-it type of season? They must address those key players' contract situations going forward. But then what they need to do is they have to fortify and beef up that defensive side of the ball. There are still needs there, most especially at inside linebacker. While Clay Matthews played a great role in improving that Packers defense the second half of the season by flipping inside at times and sometimes a lot of times inside. At the end of the day, he's an outside linebacker and he's an outside linebacker for a reason. And at the end of the day, he needs to have his ass back out on the outside because that's where he can have the most impact going forward. That's where he belongs. That's where he should be. That's his natural position, and that's where he needs to be. This Packers team needs to address that inside linebacker position. Sam Barrington is nice, but he is a former 7th-round pick and he is a role player. And Packer fans most certainly know that if you are expecting anything other than big-time mistakes out of Brad Jones, you're fooling yourself. A.J. Hawk, how much longer is he going to be able to play? And at this stage of his career, he's a solid but not spectacular player. They need a big-time impact inside linebacker in that 3-4 defensive position. I might expect him to address as early as the 1st round of this draft. But then they also need some depth and some youth in that secondary at the corner position. Like I said, Trayvon Williams is a free agent. He's 31. I question the depth behind him and Sam Shields. They could use another corner. They could use a young guy that could, if anything else, if you do bring back Trayvon Williams, improve the depth of the Packers secondary on the outside. And then they also need to find somebody at the outside linebacker position. Nick Perry could potentially be a free agent as soon as after the 2015 season. How much longer are you going to keep Julius Peppers in the fold? Is Mike Neal really anything to laugh about or brag about playing outside out of position as a 3-4 backer? They could use another explosive edge rusher. Maybe Carl Bradford gets that opportunity in 2015. But either way, they've still got to find another guy. You could always use depth at that position, and the Packers most certainly could. And then on the offensive side of the ball, if they have the one real need, they could use a real difference maker at tight end. It brings another dimension and another element to that offense that frankly has been missing the last 2 years for the Green Bay Packers. You could see in 2014 where they missed having a Jermichael Finley, even with having Nelson, even with having Cobb, even with having Devontae Adams in flashes and spurts. You could see where they really missed having that Jermichael Finley type of tight end that brought one more element to that Green Bay passing attack. But at the end of the day, this is a team with a lot of strengths in a lot of areas. This is a team that is kind of coming off of an NFC Championship game appearance, a game where, frankly, they feel maybe rightfully so that it's more that they lost than the Seahawks won it. Maybe they should be representing the NFC in Super Bowl 49. This is an elite team in the NFL, and looks like, based off of that, they'll have Aaron Rodgers back next year and have a lot of their key cogs in place again in 2015. It's going to be primed for a run towards Super Bowl 50.